Hello and welcome to The Drum. I'm Steve Cannane. Coming up, the latest on the US election, what the rise of the Tea Party means for the Obama administration. Welcome to Inverbrachy, why Tony Abbott thinks the Adelaide Hills are too idyllic for asylum seekers. And Man Up, why a Top Gear host thinks modern men are useless morons. Our panel tonight, John Barron from ABC News Radio, Sue Cato from Cato Counsel, and Tom Switzer from the US Studies Centre at Sydney University. First up tonight, the results are still coming in for the US midterm elections, but it's now certain Barack Obama's Democrats have lost control of the House of Reps. The Republicans now have the majority there, but they've fallen short of the numbers required to do the same in the Senate. One of the big stories was the success of congressional candidates backed by the conservative Tea Party movement.
We've come to take our government back. The American people are unhappy with what's going on in Washington. 11% of the people approve of what's going on in Congress. But tonight, there's a Tea Party tidal wave, and we're sending a message to them.
They totally misread the Tea Party movement. We've been called crazy, racist. We've been called a flash in the pan that would never last. Well, you know what? We've lasted longer than most people thought we would. We're going to last from now on because we are going to be the guardians of liberty and freedom.
John, we'll talk more about the Tea Party in a moment, but give us an update as of 6:07 Eastern Time.
Right now, the state of the parties, as you say, the Republicans have a majority in the lower house, the House of Representatives. Of the 435 seats, the whole chamber that was up for election today, they've won 235. That represents a net gain of 56 seats in the lower house. That's better than the Republicans did in their conservative tidal wave of 1994 against incumbent Bill Clinton, so it's highly significant. The Democrats now have just 200 solid votes in the House of Representatives, 18 short of what they need to pass any piece of legislation through that House. Slightly different story in the Senate. In the Senate, there has been a 6-seat loss to the Democrats, but they have retained a slim majority. It's looking like being 53 to 47 in that 100-seat Senate chamber. Only 37 seats were up for election. So that's helped to insulate the Democrats just a little bit, and it falls short of what the Republicans were hoping for today. So in a way, we're kind of in a hung parliament situation here. Both sides have reason to celebrate or be a little bit relieved. Both sides have reasons to be a little bit concerned.
So is the result as good as it might seem for the Republicans?
Well, this is the open question right now. We saw Rand Paul there in the introduction. He won the Senate seat in Kentucky. That was a seat that Republicans were always going to win. So to be a Republican with a libertarian Tea Party sort of backing and winning that, that's fine, but that was always going to be a blue state. A couple of other Senate seats where Tea Party-backed Republicans contested and failed, like Delaware and Nevada, where Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid has managed to hold on against the odds against Sharon Engel, who was painted as being too extreme. These are the swing states. This is middle America where the Tea Party's message hasn't resonated and the Democrats have managed to hang on. This could be the cautionary tale amid what is otherwise a very encouraging night for Conservatives, that if you're too conservative in middle America, in those swing states, then you could have a surprise loss.
Sue, what's your reading of the result?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? These results are really mirroring what we've seen in the UK and also in Australia, in that the electorate is either disinterested or those who are interested are not prepared to give any side of politics a total vote of confidence. So I think it's very interesting that we're seeing this moving globally right now.
Tom, I heard Ted Koppel say today on the television that the Republicans may regret their gains because they'll have to take responsibility for some of America's problems. What do you think?
Well, certainly the big swings in the House of Representatives means that many Conservatives and Republicans will put more onus on them to do things. But at the same time, this is gridlock. Charles Krauthammer has argued in a very perceptive column only a week ago that presidents, when they really want to get things done, they do it in the first 18 months of their administration, in the first term and then in the second term. There's going to be lame duck governance, I think, in Washington for the best part of the next 2 years, and we'll wait for the outcome of the presidential election. I agree with what John and Sue were saying. I'd simply say that one should not underestimate this election result. I mean, the historic loss for a president's party at a midterm election is 24 seats in the House and 4 in the Senate. Now, this is more than double that in the House. and it'll be 6, possibly 8 in the Senate. So this is a huge repudiation of President Obama and his Liberal Democratic agenda in Washington.
It'll be Sue.
It'll
be interesting to see how Wall Street responds. And Wall Street, of course, has been the big baddie in this campaign. If you've ever been sort of seen or had a photo taken in Wall Street, you've seen that photo used in this election campaign against you. But it will be interesting. You know, this is a time when we actually need clear policy. This is a time when we need decisive movements from governments. And when you've got the UK hamstrung and playing politics and policy for the market. The US is now going to be, it's going to be a football again. We're seeing it in Australia. This is not a good time for this to be happening for the world markets.
John, the Tea Party, a net gain for the Republicans or not?
Well, I think it'll come down to who you ask. What's going to be interesting from now on, I think Tom's right. There is potentially going to be gridlock with a Congress divided, the executive in the hands of the Democrats. They still have that majority in the Senate. They're still going to try and get things done. They're going to have to try and reach across the aisle. The problem is, when they reach across, they'll find nobody there. Usually when politics swings from one side to the other, when a party goes into a big majority like the 60-40 split in the Senate, you had a whole lot of Conservative Democrats getting elected and a whole lot of moderate Republicans losing their seats. What's happened this time, though, instead of moderate Republicans coming into the Senate, we're seeing people like Rand Paul coming into the Senate, who is, in fact, further to the right. So this idea that there is a political centre that Barack Obama can shift to now is highly debatable. Right now, it looks as though American politics is something of a donut with a hole in the middle. And what Obama does about that hollow centre now, and in trying to get anything done between now and 2012, is going to be interesting to see.
That's a good point by John. I'd also say on the Democrat side, there are a lot of moderate centrist Democrats, particularly down south, the so-called blue dog Democrats, who really copped huge swings. Some of them lost their seats. His centre side to the Democrats is dwindling very fast. So it's a very liberal Democrat.
We've got a clip of one of his more conservative Democrats. Some Democrats did play down their party ties to ensure victory, and this is an ad from Joe Manchin, who won his Senate seat in West Virginia.
As your senator, I'll protect our Second Amendment rights. That's why the NRA endorsed me. I'll take on Washington and this administration to get the federal government off of our backs and out of our pockets. I'll cut federal spending, and I'll repeal the bad parts of Obamacare. I sued EPA, and I'll take dead aim at the cap-and-trade bill. Because it's bad for West Virginia.
Tom, he doesn't sound like a Democrat, does he?
Well, Marius Kloppers, he's talking about an international pricing mechanism for carbon. I think he obviously hasn't followed the US presidential, the congressional election campaigns. No, look, that's right. I mean, this just demonstrates that America is still very much a centre-right nation. And the only way that Joe Manchin could win that seat in West Virginia was by running to the right of President Obama on a variety of issues on healthcare, stimulus, and, of course, cap and trade.
And so some of the more eccentric candidates, Tea Party candidates, didn't get up, including Christine O'Donnell, and she, of course, was the candidate who said, "I am not a witch."
Well, it's quite wonderful. She did so much for the other side in her campaigning, didn't she? She was quite helpful. But the interesting thing for me is watching, and it's actually an interesting point, that this election will actually have an impact for a long time to come, because Australians know a lot about gerrymandering. What hasn't been talked about is that in the US they have what they call redistricting every 10 years. This election will actually be determining the gerrymanders for the next 10 years. So this is an incredibly important... Oh, it's the same way as when you have, in Australia, the way it works is you have a review and everybody's supposedly independent comes up with a great idea. This is just politically, totally impactful because the people who are doing it are Republicans and they're in control or whatever. So it's, I was over there recently and looking at some of the stats. I mean, this was enormously hard fought. I mean, they always are. But I mean, I was saying to John earlier, 293,000 ads were run during this campaign. Now, we think we have a bad time. That's extraordinary. And
what was the cost, John,
Well, they're thinking it's in excess of $3 billion just in TV ads, and that doesn't start to approach what was spent online and in direct mail and
very
stickers
important
and
election.
Buttons.
Good time to be a political consultant.
It's not bad. What's going to be interesting out of all of this, though, is one of the things that saved a few very vulnerable senators like Harry Reid in Nevada, who was gone for all money.
Who was up against a Tea Party candidate,
Sharon Angle, who was successfully painted as being too extreme, being against unemployment benefits, these kinds of things. The get out the vote effort for the Democrats that won the election for Obama 2 years ago, that was living as a sleeper cell through organising for America as a community organising sort of a mechanism for the last 2 years, it reactivated. It didn't do so well in some places, but in places like Nevada, particularly motivating the Latino vote there, scaring them about issues like illegal immigration and so on, they managed to recapture some of the spirit of 2008. So that'll be what Democrats are clinging to tonight. It's not been a good day for them at all, but some of the old fire was there when they saw Obama on the stump. They remembered why they loved this guy, why they voted for this guy the first time round. And right now, I think there are a lot of Democrats saying, well, it could have been worse, but right now you'd have to say that they're odds on in 2012 to see Barack Obama re-elected. It's
interesting as well about the heartbreak that we're seeing. When you have these campaigns, whether it's Kevin Rudd's campaign or Obama, where they create this great hope and this great expectation in the nation that things will be different, when the reality is they're not going to be different, and they're sure as hell not going to be different now that you've got the houses split the way they are. You know, people are disappointed. It's got to be a warning to people that you can do great call to action speeches, but you've got to be able to deliver.
Tom, what do you think the ramifications are for the 2012 presidential race?
Well, think of it like this. In November 1990, did anyone know about a little-known governor in Arkansas named Bill Clinton? Likewise, in November 1974, did anyone know about a little-known governor named Jimmy Carter from Georgia? The fact is, circumstances can change very quickly here. I think that the Republicans have some very talented candidates who aren't being heard about. Some of these governors, like Mitch Daniel in Indiana, I think he's a very sharp, smart, competent governor. And Tim Pawlenty, who's from Minnesota. A lot of tensions on Sarah Palin right now. I don't think she could possibly get the nomination. I'd be very surprised if she gets that. And in fact, I think a lot of Tea Party people don't even want her to run as the candidate. But I think Barack Obama, I mean, a lot of sympathetic commentators here in Australia and America are saying he can do a Clinton now. He can move to the centre. But I'm yet to be convinced, because remember, in 2008, Barack Obama ran as a transformative figure. He wanted to remake the political order in Washington, make it more liberal. Well, he can't really do that if he has to take to the centre.
The other historical precedent that we can look at here, everyone thinks of Clinton in 94. The other Democrat to suffer significant midterm losses was Harry Truman in 1946. He was presented with the first Republican House in a generation. He successfully ran against that House. He spent 2 years decrying these people as do-nothing politicians. Now, if Barack Obama does that, like Give 'em Hell Harry was able to do, he could win re-election in 2012, just as Truman was able to do unexpectedly in 48. So if the centre is there, he'll go for it. If those that are saying there is no centre, it is a donut right now, then it could be Give 'em Hell Barack.
Well, let's move on to domestic issues. And another day, another huge bank profit and more angry customers as well. Today, Westpac reported an after-tax profit of $6.35 billion, up 84%, the highest result of the Big Four. Coming on top of yesterday's decision by the Commonwealth Bank to increase rates,